When I hiked the Camino earlier this year, I have to admit that there is one section I had some concerns about: the Meseta. Legendary among pilgrims, the Meseta stretches from Burgos to Leon and is known for its large flat expanses of dry fields with little shade on offer in the burning sun. As someone who doesn't function well in the heat and feels more at home in the mountains, this sounded a little intimidating to me. And I'm not the only one who feels this way. Many pilgrims consider this to be the worst section of the Camino, with some even skipping it and picking up the trail again after Leon. But that's only one side of the story. For every pilgrim who hates this terrain, there is another who loves the Meseta, and its far-reaching views and big open skies. Though I had some trepidation, I was keen to discover this experience for myself, and not to go in with too many preconceived ideas. For my third week on the Camino, I was about to discover whether the Meseta was truly the worst part of the journey, or whether it actually had something very special to offer. Just before the Meseta, I had taken 2 rest days in Madrid to see my boyfriend Alex, and was now returning to pick up where I'd left off. Unfortunately, this put me a little bit behind my friends. Hello, welcome back to the Camino. I've just arrived back in Burgos after my 2 rest days in Madrid. It's about 10:30, and if I want to catch up with my friends today, then I'm going to have to walk over 30 kilometers. So I'm not sure yet if I'm going to do that. We'll see. Very sad to say goodbye to Alex. Yeah, I don't know. I'm happy to be back here, but I had a really nice time in Madrid, so yeah, I'm a little bit sad. And I'm going to be walking entirely on my own today, so that's going to be a new experience because every part of the Camino so far I've walked with other people, but I'm looking forward to it. I think it will be nice. It's really cold. It's really cold and windy. Don't let anyone tell you that Spain is warm. It's really cold in March. Well, it's actually April now. It's really cold in March and April. And I've also recovered from my cold, which is good. I recovered very quickly. I think having those rest days really helped. So I'm in fresh health, and yeah, let's see how far we get today. Unfortunately, starting at 10:30 AM from the station put me severely behind schedule. Most days we started walking at 8 AM, and my friends had already set off for the day, putting even more distance between us than they'd already covered the day before. On top of this, the Burgos train station was half an hour off the Camino, adding even more to my mileage for the day. It was all set up for today to be a serious challenge if I wanted to catch up. So I've been walking for just under 2 hours, about an hour and 45 minutes, and I'm still in Burgos. The train station was so far out of the way. I had to walk like 4.5 kilometers back to the Camino, and then I had to leave Burgos by the Camino. It's a lot warmer than I made out earlier. I overheated a little bit, but there is just still such a strong cold wind. I can't wait for this wind to be gone. But yeah, I kind of lost a little bit of hope that I'll be able to catch up with the others today. But if I don't, then I'll have to walk even further tomorrow, like 38 kilometers, because of like the distance between the towns. So I haven't really decided what I'm going to do. I'm still just like playing it by ear. Just about on the very outskirts of Burgos now. Yeah, I'm wondering whether there's like some kind of psychological study on whether the terrain and the weather affects what you think about when you're hiking. Because I feel like when I'm in a city, I just think such like boring thoughts about what I'm gonna have for dinner and stuff like that. And then once I get out, like if I'm surrounded by mountains or something, I'm thinking about, you know, what's the purpose of my life. And then when I'm by the sea, I think even like I start thinking about like existential things like death and stuff. But in a city, I'm just like, oh, a pharmacy, a supermarket, cool. I wonder if that's just me. I don't know. Let me know what you think. As I finally left Burgos, several hours after the start of the day's walking, the terrain began to open out into wide flat farmland, giving me my first taste of the Meseta. So, leaving Burgos, we're heading towards the Meseta, which is a very notorious section of the Camino that people either love or hate. And when I came to the Camino, I was quite open-minded. I didn't want to have an expectation, but based on my experiences in the first couple of weeks, I have developed a dread for it. Basically, it's very well known because it's a very, very long section which is very flat and samey and lacking in shade. And obviously in the summer, the lack of shade is quite a problem for some people. Fortunately, because it's not that hot, it's okay for the next few days, although next week we might hit 21 degrees and I might be suffering without shade even in that temperature, so we'll see. But yeah, I just not really looking forward to just flat, boring, samey plains. I'm still trying to be open-minded, maybe I'm wrong. Some people say it's very beautiful. So we'll keep our expectations open. But yeah, that's where we're heading for the next few days. So I'm just arriving in Tardayos, which I guess is where my friends stayed last night. So it's kind of crazy to think that they set off at 7:30 a.m. this morning and I'm now here at 2 p.m. and intending to walk the same distance that they have now already walked and completed. I'm hoping to get some food here and use the toilet and then probably just carry straight on. Let me introduce you to my go-to meal of the Camino, a tortilla de patatas and a cas limon. Not a day went by where I didn't consume at least one of each, and often it would become 2 or more. The tortilla varied wildly in quality, some days bringing warm comfort, and on others an undercooked slice prompting a grimace or a shrug before I'd eat it hungrily anyway. Regardless of the flavour, one thing was always the same. By about 11 a.m, I'd definitely be craving one. After Tardayos, the Meseta began to show its true colours. Towns, villages, trees and hills vanished from sight, giving way to vast green fields under a stormy grey sky. On that first day on the Meseta, I have to admit, I loved it. To my surprise, the grass was broken up by rocks, reminding me in some ways of England. With the grey weather that day, it almost felt like home. Okay, I just came over the hill and saw Hontanas, feeling very encouraged by this. I'm making really good time, and I'm having a really good time actually. Yeah, so I think I'm definitely just going to carry straight on and I will make it to where the guys are tonight. I guess having 2 rest days, my body is just not suffering from some of the ailments that it was before I stopped. So today has been, it's felt really easy, even though I've been on my own and I've been walking, I've already done 25k and I still have probably at least another 10 to go. I feel great. Hontanas was my last opportunity to stop and find a bed for the next 10 kilometres, but with my mind made up to push on through, I passed through the town. Soon afterwards, the landscapes of the Meseta were back, this time accompanied by some light drizzle, though becoming heavier by the minute. So, I think I was too optimistic. Once I left Hontanas, it started pouring with rain, and strong winds were blowing all the rain into my face. And after 20-30 minutes, I was ready to give up. So I thought I would try this albergue that's in the middle of nowhere. The app said it was open, so, I had hope. But no, it's just an abandoned shed. And now I have to walk for another hour in the rain still to get to Hontanas. I feel like I'm on a real adventure now, which was my aim, so woo! Real adventure, yay! Thankfully, the rain eased up and I soon arrived into Hontanas filled with immense joy and a great feeling of accomplishment, having now covered 39 kilometres since leaving the train station that morning. As the day came to a close, I was reunited with my Camino friends and able to take a nice warm shower to wash away the rain. Good morning. Feeling very jolly this morning because it's not raining and I'm with my friends and I don't have to walk over 30 kilometers today. Last night was actually pretty decent, even though I arrived a little bit late. I still managed to have a nice dinner, a good warm shower, and then get plenty of sleep, so everything just went great. And this morning looks lovely. But I have to say, we're about to walk up a massive hill and I was under the impression that the Meseta was flat, so this is looking a bit like everything was fake news. Also, yesterday was beautiful, I thought. Even though it was raining a lot, it was very beautiful. So perhaps my preconceptions about the Meseta were just unnecessary. The hill was fake news. We're turning left before we get to the hill. The next morning, I wondered if today was where the Meseta would start to feel a bit samey. But once again, the views were lovely, and made only better by the renewed company of my friends and the encounters with friendly dogs. So far, I was finding this section no less enjoyable than any which had come before. So we just stopped for a snack in a town. My period started this morning and when we were sitting down, the pain was getting worse. Walking really helps alleviate the pain, but now I'm just feeling very low energy. My morale isn't bad, but my energy is very low. I just feel tired. I mean, probably because I also walked almost 40 kilometers yesterday. As my second afternoon on the Meseta arrived, I was surprised to discover that we did in fact have to climb a very large hill. The weather was still far from the relentless sun which the Meseta is known for, making our ascent easier than it could otherwise have been, and the views from the top were beautiful. Once we crossed over, we were greeted by a landscape so identical to my mental image of the flat plains of the Meseta, it was like something from a guidebook, or even a Windows screensaver. We ended the day in high spirits, finding great entertainment in a fly at our last cafe of the day.
I think he's eating it.
Do you think he's strong enough to tear the ham off?
He's strong enough. Yes.
Before arriving at one of our best albergues of the entire journey.
I'm gonna keep making jokes What if they just said roof?
Our third morning on the Meseta took us along a pleasant river under our first blue skies in several days. Morale was extremely high as we were joined by a friend we hadn't seen in many days, met many more cute animals, and entertained ourselves with more of the usual rock throwing games.
Oh! Nice. Yes! That was good! Now you're trying to get it in the hole. Yeah. Nice.
No, me neither.
Hello. We've walked about 18 kilometers and it's after lunch and I have not vlogged at all today. We have had a pretty easy morning. It's obviously very flat because we're still in the Meseta, but the Meseta is not at all how I expected it. I thought it was going to be just like walking through the Windows screensaver for 7 days straight, and to be honest it's still pretty varied. We're walking by a river right now, which is really nice. I guess in the summer this is like an alternative route that people take for some shade, but we just thought that walking by the river would be nice, so we did it anyway. And yeah, last night was really lovely because me and my friends had basically like a whole outbuilding to ourselves with an entire dorm room and then a room off to the side with a fire. So we all just sat by the fire until late and it was very lovely. So I felt very rested from that. I don't know if that albergue experience is going to be topped. Though this was a shorter day, it was a beautiful one and had only further improved my perception of the Meseta. I was starting to wonder why it had any bad reputation at all, and to regret the dread I'd experienced earlier on in the journey. Good morning. We've had a bit of a slow start today. We left and then came across a cafe quite quickly and sat there until like 9. And it's 9:30 now and it's already super warm. I'm already in my shirt for the first time in days. The last few days it's been really cold and now we're having a warm day. Yeah, so I hope it doesn't get too hot, but at the moment it's quite pleasant. And last night was really, really good. Best shower of the Camino, best dinner of the Camino. So that was a really good end to the day. Our 4th day on the Meseta is where the first signs of struggle started to show. My shoulders were beginning to get really sore as the hip straps of my backpack weren't bearing as much weight as they should have done. Although we all tried swapping backpacks, the terrain was also starting to lack any novelty, long straight paths carrying us through more and more fields. For the first time, we decided to walk a little further beyond the recommended distance for the day, bringing us to a quiet albergue in seemingly the middle of nowhere. After drinking a little too much wine in the pilgrims' dinner, the guys decided they wanted to climb a hill in the dark and try to kick each other off it. I was more than happy to watch and record some footage. After all, what are friends for?
And kick, and go. And kick.
Woody, don't just press! You have to do it with force! Oh wow, you can't do it either. With only 2 days left to go on the Meseta, I had been extremely pleasantly surprised by the experience. So far, only a little pain in my shoulders had dampened the last few days, and the terrain had been a lot more varied than I'd expected. Our second to last day on the Meseta brought us to our best tortilla yet, and the return of these long lines of caterpillars we'd seen right at the beginning of the Camino. My mood was once again high. As a side note, if you'd like to give me a mood boost right now, please do consider subscribing so you can see the next Camino video as soon as I post it. Good morning. So yesterday we walked a little bit further than our itinerary because the day tomorrow is 37 kilometers and we wanted to try and catch up a little bit so we could do less tomorrow. But unfortunately, the last part of today, if we carried on, we would have to do 40 kilometers today. So the 37 tomorrow is inevitable. So today is a bit shorter. We're only doing 27 today. The guys all got drunk last night. So, I mean, to be fair, none of them are claiming to be hungover, so that's not too bad. But they did wake up a bit late this morning. And I'm feeling great. I feel really happy. Today, I feel really excited to be out hiking, which I haven't in a while. Not that I've not been having a good time, but I've just kind of like settled into a rhythm. And today I was like, you know what, actually, I'm really looking forward to it. And I had a really good breakfast this morning. It's quite grey today, as you can see. It kind of looks like England because everything is grey above and green below. So, yeah, it feels like home. In fact, our 5th day on the Meseta brought us to a major milestone of the Camino, the official halfway point. We've just reached the halfway point in Sahagun. Woo! Technically a little further than halfway in reality. To think that we had walked over half of our full distance, covering close to 400 kilometers, was more than a little mind-boggling, and reminded me that this journey would eventually come to an end, something which had barely seemed imaginable up to this point. Just outside of Sahagun, we entertained ourselves on the playground, many pilgrims overtaking us while we messed around. Little did we know that the next part of the day was about to show us the unpleasant side of the Meseta. Right now, getting a little bit sick of it, to be honest. The Meseta for the last few hours has just been really boring. Just boring path next to a road, nothing interesting to see. Tomorrow is our last day on the Meseta, a big one, 37 kilometers, and then we'll be into the last section towards Santiago. Also, we just had a really good late lunch. It was like 3:30, but it's basically still lunch. Probably my best meal of the whole Camino. I had a burger and a chocolate mousse. That really hit the spot. That was really good. After a little more struggling on the boring path adjacent to the road, we were rewarded by the sight of friendly village goats, bringing us to our final albergue before we'd complete the Meseta the next day. On our final morning on the Meseta, we had our first start in the dark, wanting to leave plenty of time to cover the 37 kilometres we had planned for the day. The first 12 of these kilometres were absolutely gruelling. Finally, we were experiencing the tedious, uninteresting terrain that brings the Meseta a bad name. Just one endless footpath beside a featureless road for several hours, made only worse by the worst rain we'd experienced on the whole Camino. Arriving into our first cafe, we were absolutely soaked, and morale was at an all-time low. Eventually, however, the sun started to come through. We'd made it through the worst part of what the Meseta had to offer. So it was raining horribly all morning. I got completely drenched. Didn't really take as many videos because it felt too wet to get out my phone. But we just stopped in a cafe like half an hour ago, and since then it has become sunny and all my clothes have dried, and yeah, it hasn't had a terrible lasting effect, which is good. And now we're heading towards Léon, which, to be honest, I'm not really looking forward to. I kind of like just being out in nature. I'm not really feeling the city at the moment, but you know, maybe it'd be nice. I'll keep my mind open. I kind of liked, I feel like with Burgos, walking into the city was so boring and unpleasant, and it was only like the very historic centre that was nice. So I hope it's not like that with Léon, but we met someone who's going in the opposite direction, and she kind of implied that there's like a really boring industrial bit. So I wish we hadn't had that conversation, because I'd like to be optimistic, but I will try to be optimistic anyway. And with that, we walked our final steps on the Meseta and towards the big city. With the sun above us and the usual silly games to be played, I couldn't help feeling optimistic about what was to come next. The Meseta had genuinely exceeded my expectations on all but the last couple of days, offering many beautiful views and so much more variation than it's known for. Feeling positive, I was in that moment unaware that the very best section of the Camino was still to come.